Spotify has paid out. They paid out over $10 billion last year. The part that makes it kind of messed up is that there's 12 million artists uploading music to Spotify.
Is it like 100 top artists are getting the majority of it?
About 1,500 artists generated $1 million or more.
Peace, loyal MEC viewers. We appreciate you tuning in with us for another week of the Music Entrepreneur Club podcast. We're back. The whole team's back, except two of us are somewhere other than our respective homes. And it's very clearly me based on the background. Hope everyone's doing well. And if you haven't uploaded your music to all the streaming platforms yet, I know that was part of your New Year's resolution. So we're already at month 3. Let's make it happen. Go to twolost.com, use the code MEC for 3 free months of premium music distribution. Get your music on all the platforms. Don't pay for it. Get it up there. Schedule everything ahead. Learn how to do release radar and all of that other stuff to maximize your growth on these platforms. Twolost.com is the website. MEC is the code. Get 3 free months of premium free music distribution. And it's okay. So the two of you, let's spoil the surprise. The two of you are at South by right now.
Yeah, we're at South by. We did a panel yesterday. The panel was about 5 things they don't tell you in music business school. I never went to music business school. I went to a regular business school. So it was, for me, it was things I assume they don't tell you in music business school just based on my experience. But I thought it was cool. A lot of people attended, more people than I thought. The room was pretty full, but Erinn, what was your take on the panel?
Yeah, I didn't even go to business school. I just went to like 8 semester at Georgia State. But I thought it was a dope panel. Great turnout. People stayed around to talk at the end. It was really cool. So I'm grateful for the opportunity. I was surprised in at that time of day how many people came out. So it was dope. I'm grateful for everybody who did.
Yeah. South by has been dope. We can share some wins. Let me share my win first, because my win is just being here at South by because Big Ja sat on a panel Sunday. This was my first time being able to come to the film interactive TV portion of South by, and it was very productive. Met a lot of folks, planted a lot of seeds, and now we got a lot of stuff coming up on the music side. Did the panel yesterday, have Erinn's panel today. Erinn's crushing it here. I was walking down the street with Big Ja, and some fans came up to him and were letting us know how to find what's popping in Austin. And they directed us to Where Y'all At, though, the platform that Erinn runs. So just people out of the blue hitting us up, letting us know that we need to go to Where Y'all At, though. I let them know that I was aware of it. I was already tapped in. So that was super dope. A friend of mine had a set the other day, and we went to support him. Me and Big Ja did. And he freestyled his whole set. It was dope. Like, the set was dope. But come to find out, like, one of his good friends is a star in the show Last of Us. So got a chance to chop it up with him. And he recorded a video for my wife. So I got a video for my wife. I'm not even going to share it with her until we actually start watching the next season. So I was excited. He was super cool. So the moral of the story is, like, show as much love, like, be open, try to meet as many people as you can to just give positive energy. And it just comes back in different ways. So I've had a great experience thus far. I got 2.5 more days here left. And I'm looking forward to everything that we got going on. So South by has been great this year.
Yeah, I'll agree. It used to be coming to South by, I was like, didn't have a pass. I was trying to get on every list, go do stuff. And you can do South by without a pass for sure. You don't have to have a badge. But this year's just been different. Like, 1, for being a speaker, an official speaker, I have a platinum badge. But 2, it's like I've been throwing so many events that the people that I need to meet are literally coming to my events, or like DMing or texting me and my business partner, like, yo, can we get on your list? So it's like a really big shift and change in trajectory, because even when we were doing stuff before, we were throwing events for our artists or throwing events for companies we were hired for. It's a whole nother energy when you're like putting on so many things that it's just like any of the people that we need to meet are interested, or that we're like, oh, this is on my list to do whatever. they're ready to talk to us. So it's been a really good South by. And I've been in the house, contrary to how my voice sounds, I've been in the house a lot just doing meetings. So it's been cool.
It's just nonstop. Like it's meeting. If you plan it out ahead of time. I made a video about this the other day and put it on the MEC page and my page. You have to plan your day as much as you can. Try to get ahead of things, see who's going to be here, what companies are going to be here, what panels are going on. Because it's just, things are going to pop up out of the blue that you're going to want to attend. But if you can get a schedule put together, you'll be much more productive. Also had the chance last night, had dinner with Philip Payne. Has Philip Payne been on the MEC? I know that I've talked with him.
I don't think so.
We got to get Philip on here. So Philip Payne, who used to help manage Tory Lanez, and then I was with Brandman and Ja'Cory from No Labels Necessary. So it's just an opportunity. This industry is very small, and you see a lot of the same faces at these events. So it's cool you get a chance to actually see people in person that you don't really get a chance to catch up with very often. So yeah. Anyway, Payne, on your side, what's your win from the past week?
I'll keep it brief. Yesterday, I booked 7 shows, which is a lot. So
nice.
I'm overwhelmed already, even though they're not for this month. It's just a lot. I get overwhelmed easily, but that's a good thing.
Set up that bread for the rest of the year. I like to hear it. I looked at the view I guess people like when we argue. So what can we argue about? What can we argue about today?
We got a ton of good feedback in the YouTube comments, but I got a lot of DMs too. I typically feel like I get DM'd about an episode once or twice a month, but people are rocking with this episode. That's why I said I think it's something different. People may like it. So let's argue. Let's fight.
We did. I can start it off. So, okay, I got a comment the other day. It references this interview, and I knew it referenced this interview. Basically, people love to shame producers. We talked about this last episode. Dame, you said it perfectly. Because producers are in customer service, think about it, every other customer job. I love that you brought up customer service. Every other customer service job out there doesn't have to be music producers. Anyone who's selling a product and communicating with potential buyers of that product, think about it. They're the most shit on people in any career field. Customer service representative turnover is crazy. The abuse they take is crazy. It's just part of American culture. If you do customer service, people are going to cuss you out and disrespect you. So on the one hand, producers, we're creatives. On the other hand, if we're selling beats online, then we become, unless we hire someone else, which is crazy, then we become our own customer service representatives. And so then we get put in the line of fire. And, rappers who are trying to buy beats can have Karen tendencies too. So there's this tendency for certain artists, not all, maybe a minority of them, to reach out to producers and try to shame them into not charging for beats. So I got one of those comments the other day. It was like, why are you charging for beats if Metro Boomin doesn't even charge for beats? I'm like, wait a minute. Oh, he's talking about this video.
What's the price tag?
I'll say I just want some. I mostly work with people I'm passionate about. So
so you're not really selling beats.
I'm not about to be like, oh yeah, Future, give me $100,000 for this beat. Right. It's never about the money with me. So it's not a fact. I'll do this for free. I don't care. At this point, we'll just do swaps.
When we talk about, I know Dame brings this point up all the time. When we talk about the music business, we have to tread lightly, or Dame says we have to tread lightly. I think that's something that I would argue with him about because, we can go on this podcast and say, you want consistency. And then some artist is like, well, I consistently every single day send out an angry tweet to all my followers that they should fuck with my music. Otherwise, their mom's a hoe. That's consistency. And the name would be like, see, this is why y'all got to be more specific. And I'll be like, well, it's not my fault that this guy is a fucking moron. And then Dame will say, well, yeah, it is. You got to be more specific and use more your platform. I know this is an imaginary scenario, but it has to do with a lot of Russ's content where, Dame, you hold Russ accountable for making these statements that apply to his journey, but that don't necessarily apply to everyone else's journey. If we want to argue, my argument is that people are going to be limited by their own intelligence level and their own perspective and their own experience. So you might have someone that understands what Russ is saying and that's inspirational, or then you might have the person that's like, okay, well, all I have to do is drop a song every single day and I'm going to get rich and famous and their music is trash. It's not the same. In this case, this is Dunning-Kruger effect because this guy thinking that Metro Boomin actually works for free because he doesn't understand the terms that Metro is using is wild, but a lot of artists will latch onto what, and I don't blame Metro Boomin for saying what he's saying because to me it's clear, but I have an IQ higher than the width of my biceps, so I actually understand what he's saying. Some people don't. So at first, just to analyze what he's saying, at first the guy asked him how much a beat costs, and he said one something, so like 100, 6 figures. All right, but then he kind of changed what he said, which is at this point, I don't even sell beats. But at what point, right? At what point? Because Metro is the most successful producer of the last decade. He's the Dr. Dre of the new era. Pretty sure he's the only producer, or maybe the first producer to ever have #1 albums where he's not a vocal performer on any of them. Also, when he says at this point, what happened prior to him getting to this point? $70 million on one catalog sale. That's one such thing after everything else he's done. So do you have 70 million lying, or do I have 70 million lying? If I had 70 million lying around, yeah, it wouldn't be about the money for me at that point. I've done so much. And then he goes on and uses Future as an example. All right. He has many hit songs and hit albums with Future. They've made tens of millions of dollars together. Of course, they're going to do swaps. I would do a swap with Future. I do swaps with, it's called horizontal networking. If there are people at your level, you work with them. And there's synergy there. So like if I do a project with an artist that's coming up and we're about at the same level, in terms of our experience, in terms of our commitment, etc., yeah, then we're going to work together. But that doesn't mean that anyone that reaches out deserves free beats. And my response to him was, okay, contact Metro Boomin then. If he's giving away free beats, you're so confident that this guy is giving away free beats, then you should certainly be able to get a free beat from him. And this is the comment. There's really a simple reason artists do this to producers. And what he's referring to is when artists just kind of shit on producers and try to shame them for selling their beats and getting paid for the music. Y'all have a tendency to have a bias against build a project. Oh God, the grammar, where you can get point on the release and get paid. Again, this is a myth because you get paid no matter what legally based on intellectual property law. Like if you make a beat and you sell it for an upfront fee versus if you give it away for free, you still have ownership in that beat unless you're a fool and you sign away your rights because you let somebody finesse you with this illiteracy and actually give away your rights, not get points, and not get a split on the writers and publishers share. You should get that anyway. And a lot of rappers love to hang over our heads. It'd be like a supervisor saying, hey, I'll let you work here for 2 extra hours and I will make sure to give you another shift tomorrow. It's like, bitch, that's what I do anyway. What you're incentivizing what I'm supposed to be getting anyway, just so that I work for free. It doesn't make sense. So a lot of artists will tell producers, if you give me this beat for free, I'll give you a writers and publishers split. You get that anyway. So don't let people lie to you. Don't let people manipulate you. So he says, take into consideration that artist is trying to make money. Also, yeah, that's fair. So everyone's trying to make money. So we should respect each other. But somehow the conclusion reached from that assertion is that producers should get fucked and the artists shouldn't. Your business model doesn't allow that. Yes, it does. You just don't have fans. If you got into production for the money, you picked the wrong field. I agree with that. Even Metro said he don't sell beats. Leave Metro out of this conversation. You're not at the level. Neither of us are at the level to use Metro as an example for ourselves. But this is the danger of the internet and the echo chamber that is music business content on the internet.
Again, this is one of those lowest common denominator like topics. I don't even know why we talking to some cat who says something like this on the internet. So I don't really have much to add other than what you've already said. To me, this is obvious.
Well, there's another element too, because I stopped the video before Metro said this, but he was talking about the swaps. And this is another thing that a lot of people, including artists and producers, don't know. And he mentions clearance. He's talking about swapping verses for beats and, then dealing with the clearance. A lot of people don't know that. I think most people don't know this about getting a feature from a major label artist. Their label basically owns everything they do. And so even if Future were to, and I think probably Metro at this point, because he's a signed artist, I don't know how that extends to his beats, but if Future were to give me a verse for free, knock on wood, or a reduced price, or any price, I could send him 50,000 right now. I couldn't just drop the song. I would still need to clear it with the label, and the label would require an additional fee. I have no idea how much that costs. I'm guessing at least 5 figures. This is the takeaway for me. If you don't understand the music business, you might watch that Metro Boomin interview and miss key terms such as clearance, such as future. You know what I mean? You may completely misunderstand the context, including all of the accolades that Metro has stacked up, all of the wealth he's amassed by using his ownership of his own intellectual property to do what you're supposed to do in the music business and license or sell one or more of the copyrights you own to your music. And he's done that, but you might miss that if you don't. All a person who's a meathead might hear, or a novice, you don't necessarily have to, like, I think this guy's been doing it for a long time, so he should know better. He looks like he's older than me. But if either way, context matters. If the more you know about the music business, the less likely you will be to misunderstand something. It's like shit is getting lost in translation. You might do Duolingo for a day and think you know Chinese. You don't. So you'll miss a lot in a conversation with a native speaker. Same with, I feel like the music business is a language. So Metro's talking, he's using these terms. You're not catching clearances going over your head. You're not catching the context of him signing that $70 million deal. You're not catching the backstory about his relationship with Future and what that dynamic is like. And so then you just create your own narrative effectively and you go off of that. And that's the takeaway to me. If you don't know this stuff, then you don't know this stuff. And it goes back to understanding the importance of enjoying the music business part as much as the creative part. And I think that's a hard sell for people to do. And I don't know if we can teach that other than just saying, yeah, you got to love the music business. Because we talk, and you guys, you're both at South by right now. Do you feel like even in that context, teaching people about the music business isn't the same as teaching them to actually like, respect, or even grow to love and enjoy being in the music business and doing the businessy stuff above the creative stuff? There is this narrative. Like you'll even see, it's like a damn near a mantra for indie artists. It's like, love the music, hate the business. I forget, you know what I'm talking about though? And so people are like,
yeah, I've been seeing it recently where they're like, be an artist, don't be a part of the business. It's like, what?
Right. And because if you're resisting the business part of the music business, you end up being one of these guys who just hears, oh, Metro gives out free beats. I like that because I don't like the business, and that makes it simple. And now I'm walking around burning bridges with people, holding myself back.
Well, I mean, for us, or for me, I'll speak for myself. Like, I don't make a lot of money from this. This is something that I enjoy doing, just giving back and speaking to the people that are open to listening. So I don't really care if you don't listen. I feel like we have great information to share, and I know that the people that receive it and apply it do better than they were doing before. So I hope you understand the importance of education. But because this is not if this was our business and we depended on people to sell a course or something like that, that would be different. But hey, listen to the podcast. Don't listen to the podcast. I know that to be successful in the music business long term, you have to have a great understanding of this. And if you disagree, I don't care. Like it is what it is. I'm not going to be over here frustrated or banging my head up against the wall because you think that learning the business is not fun or not that important. I don't care. There's too many people pursuing this, and we're going to get into that next. So,
let's jump into that.
What is this? A post from Ryan Schmidt, but it's from 2024 Loud and Clear report, basically just reporting how much Spotify has paid out. They paid out over $10 billion last year on the master side. So I want to speak a little bit more positively. Feel free to jump in the comments and say, I work for Spotify or I cape for Spotify. But $10 billion is a lot of money, and that's just on the master side. On the publishing side, they paid out close to $5 billion. And I think what's even more interesting from these stats is half of the $10 billion went to independent artists. I know that there was even my guy Ray Daniels, I think, misspoke a couple of weeks ago, talking about how much money gets paid out to independent artists. But over $5 billion got paid out to independent artists. And this is an uptick. This is definitely an uptick from, the 2010, 2011s. And so to me, and of course we still want Spotify to pay out more. We're always going to be championing for Spotify to increase royalty rates, but $10 billion is a lot of money. The part that makes it kind of messed up is that there's 12 million artists uploading music to Spotify, right? That's what makes it, you're competing with so many people. There's so much music being uploaded, and there's nobody stopping. And I'm not saying anybody should stop somebody from uploading music, but the fact that there's no barrier to entry, I can upload a song today, Payne, Erinn, anybody can upload a song today. To me, that's where, people start getting frustrated because there's so many people that want to do this. I've said this time and time again, but $10 billion being paid out, over half of it being paid out to independent artists, I think is a great sign and super positive. So if you were going to post something negative about Spotify today, just wait till tomorrow, at least. Just wait till tomorrow. Like, show some love, because Spotify has opened up a lot of doors for independent artists, and it's made it so that there's more independent artists today making a living from music or making money from music than at any point in the history of music. So
is that a factual statistic?
I'm pretty sure it's factual. Just from my experience, like, there's way more people like pursuing music today, and I think they said that there's, let's see, there was another interesting stat. I'll get back to what you said, but it said, like, for where was it at? More than half the artists who generated over $1,000 in royalties on Spotify in 2024 saw most of their royalties come from listeners outside of their home countries. I thought that was interesting. But speaking more, let me get back to speak directly to what you said, Payne, because there is something that referenced that. But happy to hear your guys' thoughts about this.
Okay, so then my question is, what number of, because it's like a concentration of wealth thing, of that 10 billion that's paid out, of the half that's paid out to major label artists, how many fall under that category versus how many fall under the indie category? Because if 12 million people upload music every year and you divide 10 billion by 12 million, you end up with like around 800. So everyone on the platform could be making $800 a year. Obviously, we know that's not the truth. But theoretically, that's what everyone would get, which is more than the average person who uploads is getting. So is it like 100 top artists are getting the majority of it?
So over about 1,500 artists generated $1 million or more. The 100,000th ranked artist generated almost 6,000 in Spotify royalties. And I would say if you're generating 6,000 in royalties, if you got your business together,
you can really scale that up.
Yeah. So it's, when people boil it down to like a royalty rate, start complaining, you can paint the picture that looks grim as shit. Like you can, but there is another story that you can paint and especially when we're talking about music, like this is something that so many people want to do. So nobody ever sat here and said that it's easy. It's difficult. And going back to learning the business, if you have a problem learning the business, it's going to be that much more difficult, damn near impossible if you fall into that camp. So, just learning the business you could probably jump over 60% of the people that are frustrated by, learning the business. So, bread is out. Like I've always said, there's money out there. It's just difficult to get to. But, if you're talented and consistent and can build a team and have a nice infrastructure, it's possible. I'm seeing people every day, talking to people every day. They're living out their dream.
Yeah. All right. Go to twolost.com, sign up, use the code MEC, get your music on these platforms. Oh, and this is just Spotify, right? This wasn't
right.
Sorry, this was just Spotify. Yeah, this was just Spotify.
Okay.
I was about to say that. I think it's just further proof of like it's good to diversify your business, but you don't have to run from things that have been proven to work for people. And I think that's what Dame has consistently pushed is like there's money to be made here. There are people making money here. So it's like this may not be your cup of tea, but you can't discredit the fact that it's paying out to creators and artists, especially people who probably wouldn't have gotten a check, a big percentage of people who wouldn't have gotten a check in the old music industry.
We can move on. Erinn, what do we got today on your side?
I want to talk about Jermaine Dupri running it back and saying, I was just asking a question. So last week we talked about Jermaine Dupri saying, what's so good about being an independent artist? So then this morning I watched this really long video with him basically trying to backtrack about how in 2010 he represented an artist fully independently, put her on tour with Trey Songz, invested, I think he said over $100,000 with her, and it didn't go anywhere. So I think it was further pushing his point that he was like, I don't understand why y'all are caping for independent music. But then at the end was just like, but I'm just asking questions. The reason that I'm bringing this up is because I don't want to insult his understanding or intelligence, but he just lives in a different age. And again, this is back to the same argument essentially that we just had, or the same thought process. Spotify works for people right now. Labels work for some people. Indie works for other people. The reason that you need to understand the business, which goes back to the first point, is because you need to understand what works for you, what path you're taking. If you take a path and it doesn't work out, you need to be able to decipher that. That's the benefit of trying things. A lot of people are so scared to try things because they're nervous about, oh, well, what if it doesn't work out? Whatever, it's failure to launch. If you launch and it doesn't work out, now you know that doesn't work, and you have all these other data points that you can input to your next attempt. And so I think with seeing him struggle through trying to explain whatever he was trying to explain, it's more proof that you really shouldn't be relying on celebrities and people who are making their business, again, like how Metro Boomin, we just talked about that. Metro Boomin is several hundred millions in, doing well in an industry where he grew from the Fruity Loops and Dat Piff days, right? Not to say people aren't still using Fruity Loops and Dat Piff is still a platform, but if you're taking the advice of how he started and then applying it to your life right now, it may or may not work. And you have to be willing to kind of bite the bullet and try these things out.
Jermaine Dupri is a legend. Like, I mean, that no one should argue that. Part of so many huge records, responsible for so many careers. However, when you live in a major label world and a major label system, I've seen very few people be able to adjust to being successful independently. And it's primarily because they think money is what is going to get things moving. Right. And they're used to spending a lot of money, just throwing a lot of money at shit. As you heard, he talks about how much money he spent independently and things didn't move. That's not, to me, how you really get things moving independently. It's much more of a grind. It's much more community building. It's much more fan by fan, fan interaction, creative ideas. And that's just not the world that he's lived in. So I understand why, he's a little bit confused by the independent experience and how to be successful in it. Have you guys ever seen anybody like come from the major label world? It's just because they're just used to bigger budgets. They're used to more support. And when you have to do everything yourself, it's frustrating. It takes more time. Have you guys seen anybody like come from the major label world and start to be successful that didn't start out like super independent?
That didn't start super independent?
Because if you started super independent, then you probably, understand what you need to go back to. Right?
Yeah, no, I was about to cite a couple examples, but they started indie, kind of did I think about Smino, he did it similar to the Russ thing, where he was grinding for a long time, got signed for 1 or 2 album cycles. Now he's back indie, and his numbers are just soaring, but he was independent for a long time. I don't know, I think it's tough because, again, we're in the middle of another change in the industry, but there aren't a lot of examples. You got to know what you're doing. It doesn't matter. And then on the money side, like you said, a lot of people think you just throw money at the problem. Like Jermaine Dupri putting his unknown artist on tour with Trey Songz is proof positive, even regardless of what, not that people don't do buy-ons. I think tour buy-ons are really effective. Logic talks about how he bought onto Lil Wayne's tour, but it's like he had already won over Virginia, the whole DMV area. He was dropping mixtapes. He was all over the place. So you can't take fragmented information and say, oh, I tried it and it didn't work out. Like, you should not be swinging and betting that big without having an understanding of what you're swinging for. And I think that is the mistake of a lot of big names, big people. They're like, I'm going to leverage my name to make this artist go. And it's like, if big products can sign brand ambassadors or bring on investors who are celebrities, and that still doesn't make the product go, I'm unsure why celebrities think they can sign an artist in a field of music, the field of music, where there's way more people with way more access doing things. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. Well, isn't technically Rick Ross, and I guess Kanye West too, aren't they major label artists who didn't come up as independent rappers? And that, I mean, I guess Rick Ross kind of did because it's Slip and Slide. I'm not entirely clear. And now they're doing decently well with independent releases.
Well, my understanding is that Rick Ross is very unsatisfied with the numbers he's getting on music, but he makes a lot of money. So I think it's like, because he can still be the big boss and music is just one of his offerings, which kind of goes back to like, you got to change with the times. So he's doing a lot of real estate plays. He lives right down the street from my parents. He bought Evander Holyfield's old house and now he's putting cattle on it so he can write off all the land. He does his huge car show on the property. So Rick Ross, if we go back and look at the articles from when he dropped that project, he was not happy at all. They were under video. So I think he is doing well independently, but it's because he's making a lot of music or a lot of money from other things.
So that's the case where, Erinn, your loss leader, if we want to go back to arguing, like for Rick Ross, it's probably a loss. Like, he's definitely taking a loss on music because they're used to recording a certain way. Like, their producers are used to getting a certain amount of money for their beats. They're used to paying the engineer a certain amount of money for the mixing and mastering. It's just a different cost structure that folks won't be used to. I mean, you guys went directly to the artist, and I see why that makes sense. And I think Kanye is like a super duper outlier because he's Kanye. Kanye is still just a massive presence. I think more like on the executive side. Like, I don't know any executives that were in the major label system and now work successfully independently. Like, it's just
Larry Jackson, they would say, is proof of that.
I mean, again, dealing with a much different balance sheet and access to resources than, I mean, he's, top of the top.
I'm just saying, just for argument's sake, Larry Jackson went from the majors to the indies and did successfully, like super successful. For those of you who know or don't know, Larry Jackson owns Gamma, which used to be, well, I guess Gamma bought Vidya and like a lot of conglomerate indie labels and distributors, and now they're an umbrella company that does a lot. Signed Sexy Red allegedly has a deal with Drake for another label under. It's a lot, but Larry Jackson would be an example of that. But yeah, whole different ballgame, whole different sport.
Yeah, it's just a much less sexy, like, and to come from like a sexier world and like then to now, like, yeah, you can make a lot of money, but you got to really get in the mud to do it.
Steve Stout, some would say Steve Stout.
Yeah, and I would argue with that. Some would that would
I
say.
was gonna say God, but no, he came up from all grind.
Who is that? My bad, Payne.
I was gonna say Ghazi because he works like he has experience with the majors, and I guess he doesn't have a background working for them, so he built that all from the ground up. So
yeah, Empire is amazing. Like, to see where they've taken Empire, like where they're at now, and I don't know what number artists or label we were working with them in the early days, but we worked with them when they were much smaller than they are today, and to see. And he's so passionate about what he does, and the purpose is so much more than money. I love and respect Ghazi for what he's built. So Empire to me is something they move at a major label pace and have like major label budgets for things. But his vision is way different than anybody sitting up top of like the actual majors, and what he does. So, yeah, he definitely has the independent grind. He started from the bottom. He built that shit from him and Nima built that shit from zero. So there needs to be a documentary on that. Say that again, Payne.
And he was a producer, so that's crazy because I'm looking at his trajectory. It's not like he's that much older than me. And I was going to say the man built an empire, but then that sounds like a corny pun, and I don't mean it to be, but that's what he did. And I'm like, damn, man, I'm still producing. What am I doing?
I'd love to know how much. I'd love to know how much. I'm just curious, like how much Empire would be valued at. Like how many? It's definitely in the billions. But Ghazi's actually here at South by. He's speaking on a panel tomorrow that I probably won't be able to make. But yeah, he's here. He makes his rounds, man. He's always flying all over the place. They got a huge presence overseas and in Africa and building some of these emerging markets. They're really smart about how they're going about things. Now, I know everybody hasn't had the greatest experience on Empire, but that's expected as, labels grow to that size. Like everybody's not gonna have the greatest experience on Two Lost. Like there's gonna be things that happen. Like there's bugs that can happen. A lot of times people complain about things that are their fault or what they did. They didn't upload things in time, or the quality of their artwork wasn't ideal. So yeah, there's hiccups everywhere, but please don't react impulsively when things aren't ideal for you.
Well, that's kind of what we're supposed to be doing as creatives. We got to react impulsively, especially I'm saying this is what happens when you don't love the business and your fuse is so short when it comes, like you'll struggle over a song for a month and call that the process. But if one thing goes wrong during, like a DSP upload process or something, it's the end of the world. You want to punch a wall, you want to switch distributors, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, it's a big problem.
I mean, we talked about it before, just kind of like this cloud of skepticism that hovers over the music industry. And I think every time something happens, people assume that thing is happening negatively, or it's happening because somebody's taking advantage of them, or something. It's just something negative. And I think content creators today, and I've talked about this before on the podcast, the content creators versus the educators, like all these content creators in the music industry are leaning into negative things because that's what's getting a response from people on YouTube, and that's driving up more clicks. They get more views when they lean into the negativity and the skepticism of the music industry, which then makes more. So when more content's made that way, makes more people believe that the music industry is an evil place, shady place. And it just compounds. And I don't know how to stop it. I don't think we can. It's just the way the algorithms work and what people are leaning into in order to, get paid from their YouTube channels. But hopefully people are following actual. I consider myself still an educator. Of course, we make content, but I definitely sacrifice views that we potentially could get to remain, in my view, like partial and just level-headed about a lot of these topics.
Can I pick up on that then with this article that I just read? Because I think that's a great word of caution for YouTubers. I'm seeing it in the producer community especially, where you're getting all these clicks, and you might be, I don't know how much a lot of these YouTubers are making. Some of them are trying the lead with negativity method, and they're crashing and burning. They can't even break 1,000 views on a video, so they're not making shit. But some people are making a lot of money doing this, thousands and thousands. They're making damn near as much as producers who are selling a lot of beats are every month off of ad revenue. And like you said, Dame, leading with negativity gets clicks. That's how the algorithm works. That's why rage bait is so effective. That's why we went from clickbait being effective to rage bait taking over as the predominant method of content SEO. And so as a part of that, rage bait and all that, it entails kinds of language that border on libelous. And so when you're using defamatory language just for clicks, you think, great, I'm going to make $1,000 in a day off this video. But unfortunately, there are consequences, and I think we're going to be seeing a lot of this more with smaller creators and celebrities that aren't necessarily global icons like Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion. So basically what happened is both Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion have sued 2 YouTubers who were committing libel against them, or defamation, I guess, because it wasn't in written form. I don't know how that works. But one of them, Tasha K, is bankrupt, which is crazy. I mean, Megan Thee Stallion, I guess she hasn't won her case yet against Milagograms, but that's for defamation and cyberstalking. I believe Tasha K was sued by Cardi B successfully for well over $1 million, which the vast majority of YouTube content creators don't have lying around. And it was all because of statements they made that were defamatory, and a judge found them to be defamatory. And so I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying I wouldn't be happy if all the rage baity shit disappeared from YouTube. I would be happy, but also I'm looking around laterally and seeing a lot of content creators that have even done that with me, where I'm like, damn, if I really had the time, I would sue you. Because you're saying things that have negative effects on my reputation in business, and you're doing it for clicks, and you're doing it as hot takes, and you think it's all good until it's not. So people have to be more careful, because there are some people in the space, companies, people that make software and plugins, and big time producers and artists and labels and distributors and all of these entities out there that might have the time and the legal resources to go after you. And the least that could happen in a situation like that is you have to delete a bunch of content and lose money. The worst that can happen is, well, you've seen the worst. I think going bankrupt is pretty awful.
I think that, again, kind of going back to our topic, what was it last week, where it was like, folks need to be roughed up a little bit. I think it's like there's just like no respect. And yeah, I went through a situation in 2023 where I was being doxxed online, and a lot of people were saying crazy shit about me. And I could have sued them, but it's like, it's such an arduous process. But I think because people can just make up narratives in their head, because it's like you could just say something wild and it catches wind. So then you just start feeding yourself lies, and you actually believe it's the truth because you just want to be relevant in the moment. So it's wild.
Yeah, didn't this happen? I mean, this happened a while ago. Like if you want to play things out in court, It costs a lot of money, and takes a lot of years to do it. I think that's one of the reasons people are comfortable, talking reckless, because unless the person that you're going to sue has a lot of money, you see a big payout at the end of going through all of that. And because sometimes you don't have to pay. If the lawyer is going to make that assessment too. Like if you bring something to a lawyer and you don't have the money to pay him, but you're going after somebody like Jay-Z, they might be like, okay, like let's try to make this work. And I'll just take a percentage of the payout at the end. The legal system is fucked up, and it takes way too much. Like I said, it takes way too much time. So I think that just encourages a lot of the behavior that we see online, and just how some of the shadier practices in the industry. But even let's be real about some things too, though, because like artists, like for sample clearance, for example, and even us, with Funk Volume, like when we were smaller, like I let them get away, let them put samples in there because we weren't going to clear it. It wasn't going to be a risk of us getting sued, because the songs weren't going to move. So, got to say we were part of the bad actors in the beginning. We didn't actually, do everything by the book legally. But that's just the legal system these days. So Tasha is forced into bankruptcy, and did she actually got money from Tasha?
Yeah, not as much. I guess the ultimate settlement was 1.2 million, but Cardi had sued her for more than that. And honestly, a libel lawsuit is more terrifying than sample clearance, because sample clearance, I think, can get resolved pretty easily. They're not coming to take you for everything.
Yeah.
They're coming to take you for what they feel they're owed for that particular recording.
But sometimes what they think they're owed, like, wasn't even generated.
There's that too, but then at least you can make that argument. Whereas libel, now there's emotional damages. Now there are all these intangibles that play into it. Whereas with sample clearance, it's like, no, these are the statements. That's what you're getting. Kiss my ass. You want more than that? That's ridiculous. With libel, you can't put a number on emotional damage.
Right, and then you kind of say like, essentially, like could be potentially causing you to lose money from like engagements and all that. So it doesn't have to be what's actually lost. And I think a lot of times lawyers jump way up. Like you said, even the settlement was way under what was asked for, but they asked for a ton because they want you to just stop. They want to scare you so bad that you stop everything you're doing. But it's a bad business to get into where your job is to ruin other people or do tell-alls on other people's lives, because even if you don't get sued, you're just stacking up favors in the wrong direction because everybody's going to try to catch you in something too. So I don't know. It's just bad business.
Yeah. I mean, don't play with Cardi. She got the bread to just like to go after you if she wants to. I mean, some of these celebrities that do have it, it's not like she's taking up that much time out of her day because she's just paying a lawyer like, hey, I mean, she has to tap in and, for certain dates and things like that. But like, stop fucking with people, man. I would hate for my business to be built on, just negativity and just dirt and just scandalous stuff. Like I just couldn't live like that. That's out of pocket. But again, coming back to some of these YouTube channels, I know that YouTube, like just the algorithms encourage incentivizes it. I guess in essence, it's encouraging it, but it incentivizes it. But it's not really a reflection of the algorithm. It's just a reflection of us as a society.
Everyone's fucked up right now. The world is on fire in some cases, quite literally. And so I get it. This is the least of our worries right now, I think, as global citizens.
Yeah, because if we had a more healthy culture and we celebrated positivity, then, people would be leaning into positivity on YouTube. At the end of the day, folks just want to get paid. and they want to lean into what works. So if being a smart person and loving the music business, if that was like the cool thing to do, we would probably have 1 million views on every video. So, I mean, it is what it is, I guess. Control what you can control.
Well, yeah, you can control what you say and what you publish.
Yeah, control yourself.
I mean, my algorithm is really beautiful, though, and it's a lot of, like, positivity. You know, I tell you all the time, it's like black couples, salads, cooking videos, babies. Yeah, you know, I like salads, so I'm just always looking at like different unique salads to make. You know what I'm saying? Like, mine is very like positive, but I have not ever had notifications from social media on my phone ever. Even if it's a friend and they're veering towards negative or reposting too much shit that I don't want to see, I just unfollow them. I don't have an allegiance to you, like, being upset at me, or I don't have allegiance to somebody's opinion about my following. Like, I'd rather my mind, my body, and my soul to be fed by the things that I do. And if that requires omission, then so be it.
Yeah. You do on Instagram, and I keep telling my wife this, because I believe that most guys on Instagram, like not in obviously who you follow, but your Explorer page, it definitely just puts women. It puts women in there, and you have to actively like say, I'm not interested in this in order to get that stuff out, because the algorithm just assumes that you want, you know, big butts and, you know, things in your Explorer page. But you know,
it doesn't. I swear, it doesn't matter what I do. No matter how many cat videos I watch, if I stumble on the Explore page, it's just ass. And some of it is weird stuff. Some of it is weird, and I'm not saying weird stuff to shame anybody. I mean weird, like just women that look too young. It's just weird stuff, and I swear it doesn't matter what you do. Instagram just pushes that. So.
Yeah,
I think you can kind of blame the platform, the algorithm, because it is catering to a very specific demographic. And
then if you're like, what is this? And you click on it, I'm sure now it's just like, no, but you clicked on this. That's interesting. And I will say, like, anytime a guy hands me his phone and I'm like typing in my Instagram, I'm just like, I don't want to assume that all of y'all have no self-control, but I will agree, y'all's Explore pages be different. I think it's the same way they exploit women. It's like they're going to push things that they think we want to buy, especially just depending on our scrolling mentality, because we spend the most money. So it's like they're going to push ass to men and products to women, and it's like we're going to end up in these vicious cycles.
Yeah. No, Instagram is a different beast. When I log into YouTube, it's everything that I watch. So it'll be like some politics stuff, and then sports stuff primarily. That's kind of what it is. So as soon as I log in, I see clips from like, you know, the 520 podcast, Gil's Arena, then like, you know, stuff from CNN and, you know, different political podcasts. That's because that's the stuff I actually do watch. YouTube, I feel, is more reflective of my interest than Instagram, and I don't really log into TikTok much.
Well, even the platform that won't be named, there was a period where there was some pretty wild stuff on there. I was seeing a lot of death videos and just stuff that I had no interest in, a lot of conservative politics. I'm like, why would that? So now it's more based on the content I interact with. Instagram is just different. Facebook is the same way with those shorts. All the stupid shit on there, those fireworks videos that never go anywhere, where like the fuse is burning for 10 minutes and then the reel is over, or like, I hate stuff like that. It's so frustrating. But that's all over Facebook, and Facebook is owned by Meta, the same people that own Instagram. So there's something about their algorithms where they are forcing things that are popular to other demographics into your feed, regardless of what you actually watch.
It's a wild world.
I think we've talked, I mean, we haven't had a long conversation, but I've definitely shifted to social media as more of a net negative. I used to argue with my brother about this. And I used to be on the positive side. I used to say social media was a net positive, but I believe over the past 5 years or so, I've migrated over to his camp, and I believe it's more of a net negative. Unfortunately, that's where.
Yeah. Well, no, I agree with you, because maybe back then it wasn't as obvious that social media was being used for nefarious purposes, even though it most certainly was back then, but they were more covert about it. Nowadays, when you have the ex-CEO doing what he's doing and Zuckerberg doing what he's doing, they're just doing it out in the open. And it's like, yeah, we're very clearly pushing an agenda onto you. And it's a very clear political corporatist agenda. You know, whatever those guys represent, they're not hiding the censorship. They're not hiding the propagandizing that they're doing. And then beyond that, there's what we just talked about with the algorithms pushing negativity, where it's like gender wars. And, I have absolutely nothing against sex work, but that's not necessarily what people want. So why are you pushing it? Oh, it's because it's getting attention. Gore, all types of, and I'm against gore. Let me be clear about that. So there's just a lot going on that I think it does reflect. It's like, what are we comfortable consuming? Oh, anything. We're comfortable consuming anything. So now the floodgates are open, and there's no hiding it. Yeah. And whatever, man.
I wish we lived in a culture. I wish we lived in a culture that celebrated positivity and healthy living. And I mean, there definitely are some pages on Instagram that I follow that are about, more positive stories. I think the most recent one I shared was a black doctor in Baltimore that basically provides services for free. And then he got cancer, unfortunately. And then his community rallied around to have to raise a shitload of money for him to. So it's a positive story, but when you think about it in context of like what he had to do in order to get care of himself in this country, right, it's wild. So yeah, it's positive, but it definitely makes you.
Even the positive stories do have that kind of dark side where it's like this janitor has worked his whole life and couldn't afford a car, so the community pitched in. It's like, that's great for the community, but why the fuck is a man that worked for 40 years at the same damn place still living under the poverty line?
That's like a low-key a real story. You talking about the one where the guy was like taking 2 hours worth of buses to and from work, and they were like, the community rallied. I'm like, 2 hours in one direction for a shitty job to where he still couldn't afford a car. And it's still a 45-minute drive because he had to live so far out because he couldn't afford. I remember that story. That joint is wild. His country is wild.
But like the health insurance, all the health, like you're talking about the doctor in Baltimore, all the health insurance stuff, that's terrifying.
Yeah, let's wrap this up before this turns into another podcast. It's a conversation that probably needs to happen, especially as we're trying to extract more and more from the people that don't have. This country's not headed in a good direction, but hopefully you enjoyed this episode of the podcast and you learn something new about the music business.
Yeah, and drop your music. Write a song about what we just talked about, whether or not you agree with us. Drop it on the DSPs for free. Go to twolost.com, use the code MEC, get a piece of that 10 billion. Become one of those. I mean, that is an encouraging number. It is an encouraging number, and I think social media is getting worse, but I don't know that the music business is necessarily getting worse. I think it's pretty neutral. I think the money's there.
I think everything is getting worse.
Well, we're all sinking at an equal.
Except for me, I'm just getting better with time. Hopefully, y'all are too. But systems, industries, people by and large, we could end this real quick.
I'm excited. I mean, I understand where Erinn's coming from, but I'm excited in this moment about the next year, both on the Two Law side and the stuff that we're doing with Big Job. So there's definitely still ways to figure shit out, and there's opportunities out there. So please don't get discouraged to the point where you Well, actually, no. I do want some people to give up. I was gonna say,
Well,
please
Big
don't
Jaw's
get this.
content is actually hilarious, so there's that.
What'd you say?
Big Jaw's content is actually hilarious, so there's that.
Is like to me, comedy is an easier sell because people are more like, people are more particular about what they listen to. There's much more commonality around like a joke. Like if somebody finds something funny, there's going to be more people that find like that joke funny as opposed to like, I listen to this country song, but I don't listen to country. It's much more genre based. I mean, there's different types of comedy too, but there's not as many as there are like types of music. So it's definitely a more fun place to be in for me. So
no, but I feel like Big Jaw's at a good spot where he's edgy enough, but he's also not edgy to the point of being offensive. So it's just like he hit a pocket with his style.
We definitely got something coming up that might be offensive to some people, but I think it's going to be a massive hit, and I'll talk more about it in later when it's actually going to be presented. So we can wrap it up.
Looking forward to that. Dame is going to offend us in the future, so stay tuned. Appreciate you subscribing. If you want to continue to be offended in the future, then please subscribe. And we appreciate everyone tuning in to the last few episodes, especially the last one where Dame and Erinn have the battle royale over. What was it even over? It was over Russ versus LaRussell. So yeah, that was it was encouraging. It wasn't Russ versus LaRussell. I'm being
just watch it. Just go back and watch it if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, there's a lot of rage bait. We appreciate you tuning in. We'll catch you next week for another episode of the MEC podcast. Peace.